Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Chasing the Puck, the live show, episode number 16. We've made it to number 16 and we haven't cancelled yet. So, as always, appreciate everyone who tunes in live, on demand, or whenever you feel like it. Absolutely love it. Really appreciate it. Um, and obviously, thank you very much for finding out that, if you are listening to this on YouTube now, appreciate it. But also, you can listen to it on podcasts. You can listen to where all podcasts are. And found out the news yesterday that we are number one in the UK for hockey podcasts. Not the entire UK for everything, but for hockey. Really tremendous achievement. I thought for the longest time that it was just me really just talking to myself, and Karina every so often spoke about it. But obviously, being there, number one, of case, in point that there is obviously another team top of the league at the moment. Hi, Neil. Giants are number 1, 2. So absolutely fine. But obviously, one of the big ones really have to talk about over the weekend. Obviously, we'll get to the Giants in a bit more detail, but it has to be, starting it off with Team GB, the under 18s women. 5-5 against the Latvia team, the host nation as well. The really really good team to get the win, get the gold, and making that move up to Division One Group B next year. I mean, I can't even imagine what I was doing when I was 18 years old. I definitely wasn't good enough to be playing hockey and winning 5 on a bounce in 5 games to get through. But we talk about development, we talk about the kids, we talk about the future of hockey. Under 18 to go through as a group as talented and well thought out that they did, under 20s as well, all these age groups, men and women throughout the years, and, seeing them for senior in this pathways, we love pathways, we love journeys and everything that's kind of being built up and brought forward. You've got to be honest and say, it feels really good. Obviously, if you get the opportunity and a chance to see them, I hope they get a homecoming and they get a couple of home games in the UK between now and making it up to Division One next year. And I think striking when striking's hot would be really, really good to get some maybe like Leeds or MK or I Sheffield. Some of those rinks that you can fill it out. Girls can play friendly games that they can do and celebrate it, because that's the thing is that we go on and on and on and on about what's the future going to look like, what's the Team GB going to look like, and damn, if that's them at under 18 winning and they're making up to the next big up and winning 5 in 5 games, I can't see what they do next. And I know we said it, the smile that I got during the game on Saturday when I found out the score, because a little bit of apprehension. You look at it and you go like that, and you look in background. You're not watching the game live, unfortunately, and you just obviously see the scoreline and see the reaction videos that have been posted online, thinking, it means a hell of a lot for the group, the coaching staff, everyone that's involved, and to see them lift the trophy, celebrate, and enjoy in it, absolutely tremendous. And heart goes out to everyone involved, the girls, the families, the coaching, everyone that every rink journey, 700 miles to get a game, but the girls can play, and I can't wait to see what they do going forward and seeing the future of UK hockey for the girls. Not always about the boys. Got to make sure that the girls are well looked after and well treated in the rinks and the performances, and that they can play. So I wanted to start off proceedings with that and to say it was a really well done, and really glad for them. So let's start it. Top of the agenda for tonight is the top of the league, Belfast Giants. It's been a while since we've had to start with those guys, but it was one of those games on Sunday against the Devils where I know that it's still early in the season and points. 7-point gap between Sheffield, Cardiff coming off the Conti Cup win, winning a trophy, winning a cup, winning a tray, whatever variation you want to say. But it's probably the game that people have wanted to see for such a long time, really, over the last couple of weeks, because you got to look at Belfast, the form that they've been in recently. I saw a video today, and it was Neil's video today, who put it, the 10, 20, 30 games, and just that level of consistency that the team's got. And the ascendancy. It's really, really good performance to see. Obviously people were very fraught to see what was happening. Cardiff getting the early goal and how that performance would look for them, and especially going over to the gate the night before, playing against Coventry, penalty shootout, getting the win there. Tough one again. Travel. Obviously, you can't blame Belfast for where they're located and what they were able to do, but credit to them. If you know how windy it was in the UK over the weekend, the fact that they were able to get over to Cardiff, and obviously we've been here before where they've not been able to get to, and people have lambasted that with what they've been saying in the past and whatnot. But the thing is that it was going to get covered in the 3, 4 horse race part of the sentiment with it, is that Steelers had a hell of a good year. Year before, Belfast had a hell of a good year. These Grand Slam winning teams are built upon great recruitment, willpower, desire, and good management, good coaching, bringing the right players in at the right time. I've said that there's not going to be a Grand Slam win this year. I think it's going to be spread evenly between a couple of teams. But you've got to credit Belfast that they've come back. They didn't get the results they wanted the previous season, but damn, they have recruited well. And, if you're going to pick up someone like David Goodwin in the, semi-January time, really, mid-part way through the season with his hockey vernacular, his brain, and, of course, he's not going to go to any other places, really, but if that's an availability that he's fit, ready, raring to go, and you can play a player of that magnitude, that quality, is going to be a game changer. And, Belfast are in the position where they are now. It's good to see their fans on social media making some noises again. We have missed that, if we're honest, because they've been rather quiet in the last couple of months. So it's nice to see them back around on social media, sharing the voices and sharing stuff like that. Obviously, hopefully at one point I'll be able to come back to Belfast. It's been a wee while since I've gone, because I know obviously people haven't seen me in a wee while unless it's been an away game, but I do love my time in Belfast. I do love the Titanic Museum. I love to come again. But you've got to look at him. He's back on line one. Conway's playing really, really well. But you can say that about a lot of the players, the imports that they've got. It's a very tough team to face, netmind in tandems. We're going to be talking that in a little bit later on about who's got the best goalkeeper tandems. I mean, Jackson Whistle, I interviewed him when he was at Panthers. I, thought he was a really great netminder. He's got that ability, he's got that skill, and you've got to really enjoy it. But with the way that Belfast are with netminders, I mean, they pick them. They know how the good ones. McCollum as well, and Besco, you can name them. But look at the performance on Sunday. Coventry is not an easy game by far. Performed really, really well. Get the penalty shot win. As soon as it comes to overtime and penalty shots, 3-on-3, and then look at the draw. That's the thing. But they got the win. Absolutely fine that they got it. Performances were really, really good. A lot of people were saying, would Devils get the hangover from the Conti Cup? I mean, obviously, didn't have the game that they normally would have had in that weekend as well, because of obviously what happened with Fife. And obviously, we'll say at this moment in time, because Fife didn't play this weekend, really, is when will they get a bit of luck? I mean, someone sent me the video of the actual damage that was taken. Then obviously on social media, you see the photos of how close it is with the rink and the roof, and you're just thinking, is there anything that this team doesn't have to endure? Yes, it's a great, it's another week where they can get bodies back in the door, the advancement with what they can do to get more bodies, more training sessions. Johnny Crunn's doing a great job with what he's doing. But damn, I mean, the fact is obviously Cardiff didn't get that first game. They had a little bit of extra time resting. And what a game to go against, as a neutral. Everyone's favourite line is that as a neutral, that's the games that you want. And this is the thing, is I keep going into little tangents of questions that are going to be answered a little bit later on the thingy. Thank you very much for everyone who sent the questions. Really appreciate it. Is if you look at Sky Sports, you look at BT Sport, TV or anything like that, at this moment in time, if it was free to air, if it was one saying, give me a game that you want to showcase this league, this talent, this to future broadcasts for deals or TV deals or something like that, free to air that someone could watch, you would put at this moment in time, Belfast versus Cardiff. They're obviously the two hitters that have got the form, they've got the temperamentality. They, the fights are there. The fun. Pete and Keith, that know each other really, really well. That would be a barnstormer of a game, and that would obviously get people on the edge of the seats to have a look at it. And that's the thing right now. Really, really good performances. Belfast are doing very, very well. Cardiff are doing very, very well. Only the second team to win the Conti Cup in the UK after the Nottingham Panthers. I'm illegally obliged to say that every time we mention the Conti Cup due to certain issues, but I will say it's absolutely fine. But they're two teams. Great recruitment, great netmind in tandem, great defensively, great forwards. They score goals in bunches. Very talented. Very, very much the two teams that you would look at them and think, if they don't pick up either, the Challenge Cup, the playoffs, or the league, I think it'd be a disappointment with the way that they're recruiting, the way they've been playing as we hit on the edge of our seat of into January. So that's great. That's where we got. And one of the questions really was, is it a 2-horse race, or is it a 3-horse race, or is it a 4-horse race? So who's team number 3? So obviously, if you look at the league table, that would be very surprising to say, really, is the Nottingham Panthers. It's been a long time that we can say that. They are in a position now where, they're playing really, really well. I mean, Hunter going over back midway through the season. Bednard, really, really great netmind as well. And then they just bring in Jason Grande. I mean, this is the thing. When you bring a player in midway through the season that can just come in, I mean, Bednard not being able to play for the last couple of weeks, his performances, the way he's played, he's been there or thereabouts as netminder of the month for Chasing the Puck, where he's probably been voted second every single time, not just quite hit that top spot. I think he will by the end of the season. But, Lucas Sheldon, young Brit netminder, hasn't really had much opportunity to come in and play. But Grande to come in, get used to the surroundings, get used to the way the team's playing, and to come in and play so many games off the bounce so quickly. He settled in Nottingham really, really well. I mean, the only person I know who settled in Nottingham as quick as Jason Grande is Karina, who obviously loves it here already. What can you say? But, going forward, really, is he's came in really, really talented. And it's kind of brought about, he got man of the match. He's got a shutout against Storm on Sunday. Storm is a different conversation that we have to look at going forward. But, really, really great performance there. Defensively, take it what it is. I mean, you look at the Guildford game on Friday. There was a bit where all Guildford in that second period, the tide was turning. Might have been short bench defensively in the forwards line, but Guildford were in a position where if they had continued in the bounce and the slip that happened when it did, and, Panthers scoring 4 goals in, basically a couple of minutes, you can't, that is a really good sign of a good team that can do that. And, puck luck, we can say it as well there. But Guildford were playing really, really well, short benched on Friday, which kind of, spoiler alert, if you don't know the scores, what happened on Sunday. But, really, really good, talented performance there. But Panthers, I remember watching Panthers teams where they would have capitulated the pressure that was happening and being such in a way that they would struggle. They would, if a team was under the cosh for a prolonged period of time and then hit the ascendancy, then they would be in a position where they would melt away. They would put themselves in such a position that they would make a silly penalty decision. They would, concede poorly and would just put themselves in such a way that, they had defeat standard of the jaws of victory. That's the thing, is that they would end up losing games and you would think, how did they lose that game? They were performing so well. Atmosphere, was great. It was a really busy night. I know people had something to say about the attendances on a Wednesday. I mean, I can only say, obviously, traffic on a Wednesday. I work in Nottingham on a Wednesday, and I would not recommend trying to get into the city centre with the way that the buses and the travel and everything like that is on a Wednesday. Friday was a lot easier with the wind and whatnot. but that's probably not another reason as well. It's a lot of affordability, especially in January. It's a buying game that comes through. We're going to talk about the Challenge Cup format, but it's a lot of people haven't got a lot of expendable income at this moment in time to make a valid decision to do that. And we know how times are tough, but there was a lot of people there still, and they saw a hell of a good performance on Wednesday for the Panthers against the Clan. Friday, it was really good. Someone won the vault. They've got a little ridey car for the motor point for Chuck-a-Puck, which I find hilarious. Obviously, that's just weaving around the ice for people to try and throw a puck into the car. But the atmosphere, obviously, the only thing that I would be critiquing really is I do not know why they have got the period, not the period breaks. So they've got to have period breaks, but the TV timeout breaks. That makes more sense. Is that momentum? That's the thing. Is that swinging a momentum. If you're having a really good 10 minutes, and you're completely destroying a team, they're getting a 60-second timeout to regroup, reset, and coach to give them either a rollicking or what. But then also, that the caveat is that it kind of turns a tide where you would be in such a position where you might be losing and you get to impart some great bits of wisdom. That's what coaching's there for. Or reset, do what you need to do, have a sit down, just rest your brain, rest your eyes, rest your legs, and then come out swinging. It works. Some teams had it when there was the opportunity to have so, but can't really do much in the way of that. But that's absolutely one of the little things there. But from a performance wise, Nottingham, I definitely think that so far, obviously I'm going to do it in little chunks, but yeah, that makes it a 3-horse race. I spoke to Sam here after the game. He is under no illusions, really, more than anything, where he thinks that the team is capable of winning a trophy this year. I've always said in the 1920 season, not 1920 as the olden days black and white gangster movie era, but 1920 season with Tim Wallace, is that the way that Panthers were gearing up, they were in a really good position where they could have made a really good stake at playoffs with, her was firing, Toussaint was galvanizing the team. There was a lot of talent within that group there where they could have done it. So obviously you think through the couple of years, different type of coaching, different personnel that comes through the door. But this is probably the season that, let's look at it this way, social media, let's look at where we were when Steelers and Panthers were playing at Art Sheffield at the beginning of the season, where they weren't calling for people's heads moving, take the passport and leave and coach changes, and this was a massive mistake. But can you actually remember what some people were saying on social media? And it wasn't even the start of the season, it was pre-season. You don't really hear much from those people now, if we're honest. And that's the thing, is that the season is long and hard. Please, no one clip that, me saying long and hard. It's not what people want, no soundbite in that way, but it is. It's a tough one, really, more than anything, where a lot of teams, people make predictions, and that is absolutely fine. There's the thing, you look at a sign and you watch the YouTube, you look at elite prospects, you think this guy's going to set the league on fire. This is going to be a fighter, the best netminder in the world, and all this, and it all tallies up. But we've been there where someone comes in and they just it might be injury, the line that they're on doesn't quite set on fire, and things change and rapidly move along. And when you talk about things moving along, is that we are now in January, nearly into February, and it's a weird one for the Sheffield Steelers fans at the moment, because I was there Saturday against the Storm, and Storm obviously is a different conversation, which we'll get to. But is it a 4-horse race with the Sheffield Steelers included in that conversation? Write them off at your peril. That's the thing, is that they're not happy with the second period performance, really, that turned it on its head against Guildford on Sunday. But I had a conversation over the weekend where I was kind of saying, Maxim, is he probably, you think of Dominic Cormier as a mid-season signing, but Maxim Golod coming through, you know, is a really good sign. 15 goals already, and being told obviously from Crean, be careful of the Player of the Month forward award because he might just take the majority of the voting. And of course, that voting will be out this week. So if you see it on social media, vote for who you think is your favourite. Absolutely fine. But that's the thing. They had a really good performance on Saturday. You look at them and you think, really great performance, but you only can play against the team that you're playing against. Scoring on the power play again. Tansy scoring an absolute rocket out of the blue. Caught me off guard because I didn't get to record that one because I wasn't even prepared, ready for that one, that shot coming in. But this is the thing, is you go from the happiness that the fans felt on Saturday, turning the corner, great, this is a great win, to it's a weird one because everyone on Sunday, it was almost a case of, people were happy about giving that level of bounce back, with the team not performing as well as they had been. And we're waiting for an excuse to come. And that's probably the toughest thing. And there is obviously something that I wanted to say about social media, but that will come. But you look at it and you just think, a lot of people were kind of reveled in the team not doing well, calling players out, saying that these people should, again, like what we said earlier about, they should leave, they should be replaced. They're not hitting the heights that they did last season and not performing. So make the move, get the changes, need this removing. Obviously, watching the game on Sunday, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that second period, some of the goals that went in, it was a tough one. Some saves really that Greenfield has made in the weeks and saved the team. And, this is coming from a person who, over the last couple of games, again, pretty much had the shutouts and the man of match performances and performed really well on a consistent basis. And for obviously those goals to go through the way they did, but obviously one of the big things really is being on the power play on a 5-on-3 against a short bench Guildford team. And you look at it and you think, it's a quite surreal situation that, a team with that firepower, with that capability, and the year before their power play was second to none. It was almost a parody upon itself, really, that as soon as Steelers had a power play, that I think, to be fair, their social media team probably had a tweet ready to go, written in their draft to go power play goal scored by, and insert player's name there. That's how consistent they were and how powerful they were as a team. And that's the thing, is when luck is on your side and when you're playing at such a consistent basis, that those little things go right. And that's obviously where Belfast is now, where they've got the right talent in the building, but everything's just hitting where it needs to. Their penalty kill is great, power play is good. They might concede a goal, but their consistency obviously is to get one back and change the momentum swing of a game. So the question was, is it a 2, 3 or a 4-horse race? For me, I would say it's still a 4-horse race for the title. And that is a weird thing. The swing that's there, Cardiff with the Conti Cup is obviously playing against a Belfast team. We'll need to look now, see what the consistency is with the numbers that are in the building as well. It'd be interesting to see. If we're honest, it would have been great if they had the Fife game and the Belfast game, because then you could have a look at it on a weekend basis against two teams with differing fortunes. But, that's obviously the situation, really, where you've got to look at how they perform in the next couple of weeks. And, they've got a great head coach, great 3 netminders, obviously circumstances that they've had to obviously get Taz Berman in. But a really good team. I've already said my platitudes about Belfast. Panthers, I think they'll be knocking at the door. Do I think that they will get it? No, I don't think they will. But obviously, I think they'll be in the, a horse to the final hurdle is still a horse race. So I don't think obviously they're going to get lame and then obviously duck out too early. But I think it's going to be a couple of games there as well. And Sheffield, this is the thing. If you want a team who can really go on a run between now and the end of the season and hit form with the bodies and the talent that's in the building, this is the thing, is that Sheffield aren't nearly Rans. They have got talent all through the building, all through the lines that can cause damage to a team at the top and a team at the bottom. So they've got a really, well, you've got to look at the weekend really, where obviously the Challenge Cup, where they're playing in the league Cardiff on Sunday and then playing in the weekend against that. But of course, that's really a tough one. They're playing Glasgow on the Saturday, Cardiff on the Sunday, and then hitting on a Wednesday against a really big team that's performing really, really well. And they're going to be two really great games, I think, obviously. And of course, Clan. It all depends which Clan turns up. That can be a really tough game on that one there. Obviously, Greenfield versus the Pegs. Let's see if everyone obviously goes and have a conversation through there, because from a fan base point of view on social media, if that starts happening and stuff like that, that's going to cause some mild irritation. Might have to do another pegging problem article, you never know. But yeah, so definitely a 4-horse race. There's lots of points up to grabs. Obviously, of course, if you're listening to it live on YouTube as well, the chat's alive, the chat is jumping. Any questions, opinions, we'll read them out. Of course, we will. Greatly appreciate you taking the time to listen as well on here whenever you are, if you're listening to it live or you're listening to it on demand. But yeah, chat's rocking. We've got through a couple of the questions so far that we got asked on the Google form, because I think that's going forward a lot more fun and a lot easier, because it can be a little bit, people can ask questions that they're not sure that they want to ask in the public domain, and that's absolutely fine. We don't ask you to put your names on it, so be discreet, do over what you need to do, but obviously we appreciate the podcast questions that you give us, because at the end of the day, I'm not doing this without you guys, your support and your help. So you make hockey what it is. I'm just here for the ride, so really appreciate it. So the Challenge Cup format was the next question, which is great, because obviously everyone loves the format of the Challenge Cup, and the fact that we're in January, we've just got to the final four. You know what? I'll level with you. Me, did I really enjoy playing Storm, Panthers and Steelers and watching those games in a constant loop rotation before the season started? Do Belfast fans really enjoy the games against Clan, Dundee, Flyers? And obviously, the other groups as well. You've got to look at the Cardiff, the Guildford, the Coventry, all those teams mixing together in Guildford. Was it a really good thing to see by bringing, the groups a little bit differently, keeping Scotland the way it was and then clumping everyone else together in a little one? Yes, I feel having those games of playing against different opposition, this thing, in the league, in the cup, we've had this conversation about the doubling up, the league points and cup points go together as one game, like they do in the National League. Been a very advocate, Anthony from Brandon of the Wall gave a really great apt description of how that works and how that brings it to the table. This is the thing, is that everyone wants to look at it and think, they want this, they want it the best it possibly can be. Would you like it that it has all teams through the pyramid and, Belfast play Leeds Knights in a game? Would that be something different? Yes, it would. Would they be able to compete? That's a different conversation for a different day. A lot of people kind of thought, the buy-in, it's now January, and these teams don't officially know what's happening, where they're going, what they need to do. And then, of course, you pick your poison. That's the kind of thing that, as soon as the game's over, Panthers play Clan, announcements made. The next thing that you see is Belfast will announce their decision by Thursday. And then, of course, as it happens, lots of speculation comes through, will they want to play, their form, how's their form been really? Would they want to pick Cardiff? With the injuries that Cardiff have, would that be a really good two-legged game? Would they want to play Panthers that they've just had success against in a double header? And, and recent years has kind of been that team to be, or do you want to negate Sheffield by having Sheffield and Cardiff play each other, which helps you in the league, but also helps you in the Challenge Cup because obviously you're going to have to face one of them. So let them fight it amongst themselves between two games. That's the thing, is that you look at that and you go, if it was an old format, if it was, second versus third, first versus fourth, with the way that the ranking happens without the points percentages or anything like that, that's what we've got. Panthers with that buy-in is team number 4. Belfast won all their games, their top seed. They're number 1. Sheffield and Cardiff 2 and 3. So obviously that is how it always has been, and that's the way it's worded. It's not like we're going to get little golf balls and write that the team's name and then just hope for the best. It's one of those things. We want it the best that we possibly could. Having teams coming in to play. But then this opens the world of making it easier, is having Brits play certain minutes, your two ways to play certain minutes, and then so many variables or anything like that to try and make it the best for development for the younger players and the youthful players. But also you don't want a situation where teams playing, this is the thing, if it was a prelim and Steelers play Steel Dogs as some kind of way to change the Challenge Cup, then there's a conflict of interest of those two teams playing. Of course, as they do in the Champions League, two different teams, different reasoning, they can't play against each other. It opens up that really big difference. A lot of teams have some really great relationships as well with players. You've got to look at Belfast, got some really good ties with Solway, and Milton Keynes with bringing youthful players in the building as well. There's all this future variations and stuff like that. I'd love it. I'd love it if there was a way that we could do it to make it different. I think the key thing really is that it probably should have been done by Christmas, or the final should be in this time frame now. And then the business end of the season kind of starts looking at it, because, having a season-long Challenge Cup, financially, obviously I'm not privy to those information, don't see how that looks, but, people wanted change. Change happened. Teams agreed upon it. They agreed upon how the ranking system would work and what would happen after the buy-ins, and everyone was happy with it. So obviously after that happens and situations do incur, you're in a position where, does it work? Yes, it does work. From a costing point of view, Nottingham do have the buy-in. Steelers have the £8 games. They have that kind of thought process in place. Other teams have that as well, where they're kind of looking at the best interest of the fans by not making sure these extra games don't cost an arm and a leg. But, is there a right or wrong answer? This isn't me where I'm just going to basically give you the right answer. And it's like, why don't we just do that? Why can't we do that? The only idea I've ever had is having a mini table where play for points. If obviously you can't do the system that they do in the National League, is where I think it's the Scottish SPFL actually. Obviously that's really my knowledge for Scottish football, where after a while the teams, the thing is that, let's look at it in the nicest way, is the teams that really struggled in this new concept, was Guildford, was Fife, and was Storm. They were gone before it even really got kicked off. Is you would do it in there, mini table, great for drinks, absolutely agree. Is that maybe there is a situation where they could split it halfway through and say, this is the top 5 and this is the bottom 5 after a couple of games. These teams, let's them play each other. It might not be the most exciting thing in the world, obviously, having two teams really playing, but, having a cut-off point, saying after the first 2-3 games, these are the best performance teams in the Challenge Cup. Let them play amongst each other for a couple of games, and then let the teams pick up points. Then whoever gets the high percentages from those two groups, the top 2 from Group 1, top group from Group 2, then puts them together. Obviously, the argument is then when the final's still going to be the top group, those two teams. But don't write teams off, because obviously we've been, in the past, we've seen it. Obviously, Fife beat Sheffield a couple of years ago. Obviously, the other argument is that Belfast really beat Fife when the final was there. So, sport is one of those things. Nothing's guaranteed. If it was always guaranteed, I would win every week if I bet on the sports, on horse racing. There's a favourite. Of course, there's always a favourite, but you just never know what's going to happen. And that's the best thing about sport, really, is that that's my idea. Let me know if you think it's stupid. I completely agree. I've got thick skin. It's absolutely fine. But we're going to hit, middle of February. Game will probably be in March. And then we're in the business end of the season, really. One team's got a trophy. And then, team that's in the final, they might react to that such a disagreement that obviously it takes out the title and the playoff picture. That's obviously my only inclination, really, is it'd be great to have something in place in the cabinet a lot earlier than it originally is. And then you can just fully focus towards the league and the playoff. And of course, obviously playoffs, there is probably going to be an episode in a couple of weeks where we're going to be talking about the playoff format as we ramp up that, and then obviously we can start the conversations about best of seven series and everything like that everyone loves to have this time of year. So next question that was brought upon them on there is the Manchester Storm. That was obviously a big question. So it was a two-part question, really. Is the new arena, when they finally get around to making that move, is that going to be a game changer for the Manchester Storm? Is having, the opportunity for more people in the building? Will that bring better sponsorship? Will that bring better financials for them? Could they tap into that Manchester City, Manchester United fan bases? Could there be an opportunity to get the word out there for people that are in Manchester area, Stockport area, lots of big areas in Lancashire that you could kind of tap into that doesn't have the teams that they have the opportunity, that have sports teams that can kind of piggyback on it as the next generation to bring more financial space, better players, better chances? If you don't know what the answer is going to be that I think it is, I think all of them are a very big possibility. I think they've got a really big opportunity. If they can get this right and get a building through the door, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love going to Altrincham and seeing the players kicking around a football and climbing under a car, trying to get said football while they're trying to warm up. But, could that be an inkling of having a big future and having Storm in the conversation of being a team that can recruit well? I mean, it's going to be sad. I mean, who doesn't love going to Manchester Storm and taking in the atmosphere, seeing Lightning Jack, seeing, the view that you can get in the old building and everything like that? It has that kind of warmness to us. I remember someone telling me that it would have been quicker for them to drive home to go to the toilet by the time that was the queue for the restrooms at the game. So, that's the thing. You think about it, and that is probably a really big opportunity. And this is what we want. We want all 10 teams to have all the money and all the financial know-how and have the best arenas being full every night, the best food, the best merchandise. You want people there. They've got a tap potential. I mean, Manchester, I went to Manchester a couple of weeks ago. USA Sports, got my Maple Leafs jersey. Didn't get the alternative because I don't understand why you turn it inside out and it's difficult, but that's a different conversation for a different day. If you're a Maple Leafs fan like me, you know how it feels. But I didn't see anything hockey related in the time. And I know people will say it's Manchester Storm, it's Altrincham, it's out in different area and stuff like that. But I've been to Sheffield and I've seen Steelers merchandise. I've been to Nottingham and seen Nottingham merchandise. I've been to Kirkcaldy and I've seen Fife merchandise. I've seen Belfast merchandise, and so on and so on. You see it, people, even if it's not a match day, you kind of see it. You give that knowing nod and that knowing wink, and you're a hockey fan. This is a hockey town, and you know what the sport's all about. Manchester's like one of those things, really. Everyone's a City fan. Not lesser extent a United fan, but obviously my thought process of Premier League football is probably not a conversation that wants people to have. But that's what you want, is you want people to fully embrace, know the area and some things like that. if you were a businessman that works in Manchester and surrounding areas, I could not see a better financial influx of bringing something with eyes on the prize that's probably in a more affordable level. Because let's not get it wrong, if you were going to put sponsorship in Manchester United at Old Trafford or the Etihad, how much is that going to cost you? How much is it that week in, week out, obviously, if they get the stream good, get the commentary better and get the stream video in a new arena with more camera angles, there's going to be more people in the building to see advertisement, but then also people will see the boards and actually be able to read what it actually says. And obviously it doesn't look like it's blurred. So if they can do that, question is, you look at it and you think, well, that's the best case scenario to do it. And my business background isn't what it used to be, so everyone can look at it and go, they say to make money you have to spend money, and hockey is that kind of thing that where financial variables do we have an influx of money? No one's going to come in and I remember a rumor that just came through randomly. Someone said, oh, did you hear that the Nottingham Forest owner was looking at the Nottingham Panthers? And when I heard it, and I was just a little bit like, okay, that seems weird. And obviously, I've said Nottingham Forest because I'm not going to say Notts Forest because last time I almost got lynched, which is fine. And of course, it does tick a little box that they got absolutely stonked by Bournemouth 5-0 on Saturday. So that appeases anyone who obviously wanted to mention Bournemouth at Dean's Court, which is absolutely fine. Obviously, my nephew's not happy. He's a Forest fan, so we'll leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, this thing is that, financially, the top teams, we always look at it, we talk about wage structures and everything like that, and, what you can bring in and affordability and, in the red, in the black and everything like that is, if you've got more financial wiggle room, that doesn't mean bringing wages in. That's, hotels, that's a lot. All these things matter for a very short space of time of bringing people in the building. If you've got good connections for transportation, because you're going to need the cars, good retail connections with sponsorship, anything like that. People need places to eat, food. If you get good connections within the local area, players have got to eat, player deals and stuff like that. I mean, how many player deals have you seen, after a game and stuff like that, where team A is being nutritionized by so company? All these little factors that pop in make a team go round. And this is the thing, ignorance is bliss. When I was young, and it was just like, you think of football, everyone's got billions, cajillions of dollars and pounds and everything like that. Hockey works in that little room where every little penny counts. And this is where we go back to, playoffs, Challenge Cup, friendlies, merchandise, everything like that. Food, they get a percentage, but if the rink's an arena rink, they're going to get a smaller percentage. Yes, the credit is they're getting people through the door, but you're probably looking at 80-20 split. That, and that's where the cost is, that to subsidize what's happening, the clubs will get their percentage, but then companies will have to make up the biggest margin they can by getting money wherever they can. And that's, where it is. But if Storm get the new arena, I think it's a game changer. And quote that, because obviously at this moment in time, which leads me into performances now, if you hadn't seen the interview at the weekend on Sunday after the shutout victory by the Nottingham Panthers, Mike Moran basically, apologised to everyone, really, saying that the players are working hard, being in such a position where that, week in, week out, it's not good enough, not happy, performances like that, and apologising to the fans. This is the bit that, if you take away the season that Fife is having, is I think a lot of Fife's, what's happening to them is deflecting off the Manchester Storm. Is a lot of people are talking about, how, if this is the worst team in the Elite League, is this going to be like the Knights? Is this going to be like the Capitals with the worst performances? The drop-off that Manchester Storm have had from the season before to where they are now, they've got the right people in the building. They've got some really talented players that early doors of the season played really, really well. A netminder that, Evan looks great. The last couple of years, he's performed really, really well. I've said that, obviously, if there was an opportunity, one of the big arenas, teams would probably snap him up if that would be the next logical step if he wanted to stay in the UK. Alex Oxdale, Alex Oldale, is a really, really talented netminder. I mean, the fact is that he came in and performed in such a way against Steelers on Saturday, and he's done it time and time again, not just in these games. He does not look out of place playing week in, week out. I think at some point they should take the gamble with him. That's my personal opinion, and play him. He will obviously probably be one knocking on the door in the next couple of years when everything changes and everything's there, where unfortunately time takes us all and we can no longer play anymore. You'd kind of be in a position that he would be one of the forefront runners of playing week in, week out in the elite league and being a consistent. And he's still young, and very, very talented at that. And, obviously Tendek being brought in as well due to the injury, got to see him very slightly on Saturday warming up while he was on the bench, and then obviously did the swap with Lewis McBride for the actual game itself. And this is the thing, they've got some really good talented players, Derflinger as well. They have a little bit of bite. I have to say a little bit of bite because obviously some people don't like me saying feisty, but they are a team that, I always have my camera ready when they're playing to expect the unexpected, where they will get a little bit of shenanigans and they get a little bit nasty if things aren't going the way. But it is one of those things. If Fife weren't having the season that Fife were having, you'd kind of be in a situation there where you'd just look at it and you think there are two teams that are really, really struggling at this moment in time. And Fife, great, they got the victory. They got the victory over Storm, of one of the teams that have done it there. Look at it that way, and then you kind of feel like it's a really, really tough one, because obviously they're looking for a new coach. This is the thing, is if you're looking for a new coach, bringing it through the door now, we're coming close to the deadline, so any changes, obviously I can see some people saying about the feed and anything like that. It's still showing live for me, so obviously just let me know if you can and can't see it on the chat, and obviously we can see what we can do. I've got the IT person, Karina, looking at it now. Fingers crossed you can fix it. So let's have a look. So going back, so obviously anyone who missed it, I did say, Dale could be a Manchester starter next year. But yeah, the biggest key thing really is that they've got the tools, the talent at Manchester. They've got a rink that is a real bitch to play in with the size, and it's a tough challenge. That you take away with the new rink, but do they take the hit this season? This is a team that, everyone was like, thinking they were going to finish in the top, in the bottom 2 of the 10 last year, exceeded expectations. Joe Morrow comes in, big talent, big name on the roster as well. I said this last week. Matt Ginn comes in, coach of the year, makes the move back. New coach comes in, all changed. And then the fact is, it's January. What can they pull? There's no Challenge Cup for them. Could they sneak in? Is there a little bit of a team that could have a dip in form that could maybe squeeze that top 8 and then make a challenge of it by the teams? Because if you look at the 3, so, 3-4. So the way that they've performed, Manchester Storm have performed against Belfast, Cardiff, Panthers and Steelers. If that's in whatever order you want it to be, would be if, Stars don't play as well, there's any injury or anything like that, and they can squeeze that 8th position place Storm, then they get the quarterfinal, they get that extra game. Will they make it to the final weekend in Nottingham? That's a really tough one, but I think this is obviously, I've said it with Fife and said it with Storm, is, from a recruitment level, Storm with the Brits, the system that they've got with the Blackburn Hawks and Aries. I mean, if you've got to look at Connor Lee making the move there, is they've got a knack of having these young Brits in the door. So they haven't got that problem. That's absolutely perfect. They just need to get the right coach in, that right ideas and values. I mean, Mike coming in and Mark Thomas as well, really, really talented people that are doing a job week in, week out to try and get the best out of this team. But the question is, from a narrative, is if Fife weren't having the season they had with Tom Coolan leaving, the injuries, the players walking out and everything like that, I feel like the big story with Manchester Storm, that big drop-off. And, they're a capable team. They're a really talented team. And I feel like If they get a coach in now, absolutely perfect. I feel like they can have a big say. They always have a big say in the bottom half of the table and the top half of the table. But this is obviously where it needs to look at, because a lot of teams, this is the big thing really, is that for a performance the way it is, I mean, Nottingham have been playing really, really well, but you look at the game, getting shut at home, you've got a head coach apologising about the performances, played, some really good parts in performance on Saturday against the Steelers. And you think, obviously, you go from Saturday, got the bounce at home, really busy, really popular evening against, Sunday night in Altrincham. Seems like a really good place to be. And it just kind of falls by the wayside. And, there's a lot of hard looking that needs to be done, because we are in the position now where there's not a lot to change that can be done. This new way of bringing, what Brits are going to come through the door to make the changes for the two ways, that's not going to happen. Market wise, what can you bring in? What kind of chop and changes can you galvanize really at this time of the season? You can find some really good hidden gems. Of course you can. It's been shown, it's been proven, but this isn't bringing one person through the door that's going to constantly change it. This is where you're going to have to get a mentality ideal and differential that needs to happen with the players and everything that goes through. So you look at it, it's a tough one. They've got a really good opportunity in the next couple of years, getting this ranking, getting the right bodies through. They could easily get another fourth place finish like they did this year, before, when they were obviously were told that they were going to finish in the bottom two, and then they finished fourth. Is it a step down, really? It's a very unfortunate thing. They had an opportunity to build on things, but like I've said previously, one team has that kind of nosebleed season. And, obviously Guildford had it for the Mind the Gap era. Storm had it. And obviously is Coventry the team that's that Mind the Gap, bloody nose kind of mentality that they did this year? Got to wait and see. Obviously, still a couple more weeks until I give my final predictions, because obviously I think it's more an ample time to know. And then obviously have made the decision that next season Jason the Puck will give predictions this or next season, but who we think the player is going to be, netminder, team that's going to finish and win trophies. It's time. It's nice to get social media for people to bookmark it and put themselves in a position where people can call me out for how shockingly bad my predictions are. So that's something that we need to look at. So next one that was on the agenda that was sent through was social media. So what I'm going to do is, obviously, social media it's fun. It's fun. This is the thing. Is on Friday I spoke to some Panthers fans that have not been fans very long, not on social media, absolutely fine. And that fresh look, buzzy-eyed about hockey and that excitement and everything that they had, not knowing the intricate ins and outs of what the social media is. And I just said, oh, do you look at the Twitter stuff? And they said, oh, no, we don't really need to. And then it kind of dawned on me is that kind of, we love it. This is the thing, is that there is nothing better for people to have their opinions, have a bit of fun and a bit of laugh and a bit of joke with relation to it. Thing is that people, will post certain things in the time that, can be an opinion. And that's the thing, is that, when you do an opinion, is that there's going to be a point where it is a biased opinion. The thing is that, you see someone saying, oh, I think thing is going to get battered today, or so-and-so, this, that, and stuff like that, is that it's not impartial. This isn't the bit where that people look at it and go, this is brought upon by looking at hours and hours of data and informative information that we have here. It is that there's going to be a bias based on personal thoughts and personal opinion. And, I always say, credit where credit's due, is that, someone who has an opinion is absolutely 100% right to have said opinion. But this is obviously the market that we currently live in now, is that, people keep receipts. If someone said at the beginning of the season that, Belfast is going to be nowhere near top of the league this year, or, this, and this, is people will remember, people will bring it out of the woodwork. You think, obviously, deleting is cheating, as they say. Obviously, these things get screenshot; they're around forever, and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, there is a post that's hidden forever about what I thought about before the Grand Slam winning Sheffield Steelers that no one can seem to find, which is fine. But that's because of the Titanic incident. But we'll keep it at that. But yeah, you look at it, deep down, is there's going to be a positive and a negative reaction where, on a certain game day, people ask about the bingo card. How does the bingo card get made? How does we kind of do it? And a lot of it is based around the games. Is that, if you're playing, if it's Sheffield versus Belfast, that's where Rent Free comes in, Obsessed, Family Sport, and all that. Storylines and headlines kind of right between. Thinking that, deep down is that, that's where the arguments seem to happen. Incidents that happen, 5 past is law of averages, 10 past is law of averages, a shutout is a law of averages. Teams retweeting is, it's a bit of fun, really, in the nicest way. For the longest time, I was very much like, this little skittish person in the background, it would be really nice if the team spoke to me and played along. And now we're in a position that we're just waiting on Belfast Giants and Coventry Blaze to follow us. And then we've got a full house of Elite League. There's a few more on the national front with relation to Leeds, MK, and a few other teams. But, credit where credit's due. They do play along when they can do. But, it's a business at the end of the day. We kind of post and, have fun and a little bit of laugh with the UK hockey scene. Of course we do. It's always nice when the people that are fully engaged and fully involved, if any players or any teams follow us, greatly appreciate, and it makes it a little bit fun. Obviously it makes it a little bit harder for me because obviously I don't want to take the piss too much if a team is following and then they that's a little bit harsh, which hasn't happened before, honest. But yeah, social media, people ask it, is it too toxic? Is it too, is it an environment? The only thing I can say is that, I feel like Twitter, Elite League Twitter is slowly on its downside. Obviously, that might just be other factors other than what's being posted and what's being said, because, numbers aren't quite there. Yes, it's great we hit 5K over the weekend, but, everything's quite down, unfortunately, because people are kind of moving on and thinking, Instagram, Facebook, and other channels and stuff like that. There's still the old favourites there. Everyone who gets involved will greatly appreciated it. But it hasn't got that zing, that spike, or alternatively, everyone's muted us or blocked us, and that's why it hasn't got that swing anymore. But, we enjoy it. It's kind of, the caveat is really that, if you can't afford or you haven't got any of the streams, one of the biggest thing that you do have, the opportunity that we do have, is put ourselves in a position where social media helps. You get clips from clubs now, moments that happen. We try and get as many clips as we can do. I appreciate anyone who sends photos and videos throughout the evening of fights, funny bits and whatnot. They are a big help, of course. But that's where it kind of thrives, is that, there's no, programs aren't where they used to be. Only very few teams have programs. There isn't, someone said, it's all great about having a podcast and stuff like that, but where's the highlight show? Where's the stuff? Where's match of the day? And, if that was an opportunity to, be able to use this footage and put it into a highlight package with my editing skills and, get a voiceover from me, myself, or anything like that. But there is highlight packages. It's just, it's free on YouTube, and it's just, it's not all together as one bunched up hourly program. I get it. If the thing is that if it was readily available where they could put it on a program, one of the 1 to 5 channels, showing my age now, because obviously there used to be 1 to 3 and then 1 to 4 and then 1 to 5 with channel 5. But would it be good? Would it be nice that, on a Sunday afternoon, slot of watching highlights of hockey like they used to do with Serie A on Channel 4 in Goal Lazio? I know I didn't really do it to the level that they did it when I was a kid, but no one wants that. But yeah, I know where I can get the highlight packages. One of the big things that I've said is I'd love to get the old games, the old highlights that, they used to sell on VHS and DVD somewhere so you could watch it, because there's a lot of new fans. Someone say to me, "Oh, can you remember so and so?" Or you see a jersey of so and so. I mean, I remember talking about Longstaff, because obviously you're talking about Newcastle United, and obviously, you know, they play, they played the community and everything like that for the name and the ability that was there. And there's certain players that, in the sands of time, got to give credit to the Steelers, when they brought back, a couple of players over Christmas, that they made the big pomp and circumstance of these players that are an integral part of the history. And, in 10 years' time, they're probably going to bring, a Jono to the fore, Paul Adey's around, David Clark there. There are probably players now that are playing that in 10 years' time, they could do it. Belfast, David Goodwin might pop over and they might have an appreciation night for him for all of his services to Belfast. There is that footage and stuff like that, but there are players now, in the nicest way, you could appear to a game and probably walk past a former Panthers player, a former Steelers player, Coventry, Fife, Dundee, Glasgow, or Braehead, back in the day, where you could probably walk past them. And, not like these things, like an Abe Simpson. I used to be a hockey player and stuff like that, is that there is probably people there that could be celebrated and could be appreciated more. And, let's not beat around the bush. Hockey was a little bit different back in the old days, where there was a little bit more rough and tumble, a little bit more violence, and a little bit more, because obviously we're coming up to the 9th of February, which is the anniversary of the Parliament Street bench clearance. That's the thing. That's the one moment that, people look at. Of course, we'll post the video. Of course we will. It's tradition. But it's moments in time like that you just don't want to lose forever. Is that there's probably, if you're a Panthers fan and you're listening to this and you've not heard about what the bench clearance is at Parliament Street, Google it. We'll post it on the 9th of February, but Google it between now. Hell of a night. Fun. And obviously I know Simsy posted the photo of the aftermath of everyone standing like naughty little schoolboys in the back as well. But this thing is where we are with hockey is part of our history, is part of our past. And, there's going to be an era where I get to tell my kids about, the great teams that have played, that I've seen, the players that I've experienced and stuff like that. And then obviously Karina will probably say the same, but we'll have better players to talk about. But, that's a different conversation for a different day. But, that's social media. I like seeing the historical things. I like to see it on this day. I like to see, back when. Maybe it's because I'm an old fuddy diddy, but present day isn't the same as the good old days. Music's not the same, technology isn't the same, and then you look at it there, and then so rolling through, we've got 3 more subjects that people want to do. Feels a little bit longer today, conversation wise. That's because you've given me more questions, so really appreciate it. Thank you for everyone who's done it. I've said it a few times, but it would just be me rambling on. I know the very first episodes I basically just did a copy and paste job of the games and who scored, when they scored, and stuff like that. And this is the thing, this show's always going to grow and adapt and listen to your feedback. And basically me waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning in cold sweats about what I said or what I did. But we're enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. So yeah. Atmosphere. So obviously if you saw it, going back to the earlier game, that, there was a lot of conversations about Block 13 over the weekend about, the megaphones, saying what, saying who, Conti Cup, fans really just complaining that it only went to Block 13. Obviously, we had this conversation about, being Block 13, the drummers at Steelers, the drummers at Fife, Section N at Clan, and of course, as well, Boomerang Corner at Belfast and the Barmy Army in Nottingham. So lots of places, a lot of atmosphere. And this is the thing, is the caveat is that the more people that come through the door is, there was a time when tickets were basically being sold for Girl Scout groups, football clubs, every Tom, Dick, and Harry on the street that you could just give them a comp ticket, or schools, come to the game, experience it, tell your parents, we'll give you comp tickets, you can buy a program, merchandise, and stuff like that, and you get stuck for life. There's going to be the season tickets, there's going to be the hardcore lot that's never missed a game, that has a tattoo of their team on their arm. You look at it this way, and then, a lot of people look at it and think, it's a very tough thing because you've got to do this. I mean, I know you hate the examples, but I would say Saturday against Sheffield, Storm game. How many times where I sit, credit, they probably don't listen, but I sit there's a spare seat near the back end of the arena, and every week the couple that sit there that are season ticket holders make sure that there's a seat there for me so I can record and we have a conversation. They gave me chocolate as well, so really big thanks to them. Really kind that they saved me a seat and give me chocolate as well. But I sit there and the same steward, I keep speaking to them of how many times they have to tell people not to stand up, not to walk to the bar, not walk back from the bar or the toilet while the puck is in play. And that's obviously the biggest thing, is that, new fans are going to be that. There is probably going to be a percentage of, you've got to keep a percentage of season ticket holders in the door, guaranteed income that comes through. Keep a percentage of walk-ins and then, try and sell it. The name of the game is to try and sell it with either advertisement, word of mouth, or in the nicest way, Saturday night, you can drink in your seat while you're watching game. There's going to be a fight. There's going to be drama. Come to a game. It doesn't cost that much compared to a football game. And there's going to be new fans. The thing is that when it comes through, majority of those people that are going to come through are in the old adage of, you don't know what you're doing, blah, 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 all those football chants, rah, 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 stuff kind of stuff. And you look at it and you just think, it's great because you want these kids to come in, you want these adults to come in, they get hooked in it, buy merchandise, and they're going to say, I'm going to be there every week, I'm going to buy a season ticket, because that's the way you want to grow. I mean, I'm one of those people, really. I came through the door by being a fan, by watching a few games, and then, I thought, why not get this to consume my entire life, and then whatnot, and it did, and I'm here where I am now on the back of, on the off chance at college, I thought, what can I do on a Saturday night? I don't look old enough to sneak into a nightclub. I didn't have the big bushy beard like I do now, and obviously the grey hairs and being close to 40, but I couldn't sneak into a club. So, what was better to do? Watch grown men fight and hit a Oreo around a block of ice for 60 minutes. And then you get hooked. And then, you've got to have every bit of merchandise and everything like that. And you do. This is, the person that you're sitting next to, that's sitting in your block, that's behind you, in front of you, side to side of you, was a one game fan once. They went to their very first game and then got hooked. Might have took them 1 game, 2 game, 3 game, 4 game, but they got hooked. These next people that are here, yes, they don't know the rules. They don't know the decorum and the sitting down, standing up. They might win 50-50 in their very first game, or shirt off the back, and you might have been going for 20 plus years and never won a shirt off the back, or you could be a fan that keeps winning them. If Neil's still here, congratulations on the other jersey that you bought, that you got at the weekend. That's the thing, is the luck of the draw. I haven't won a shirt off the back in a very long time. The last one I won was Toussaint's jersey against Cardiff the season he came back second season. Karina won one this year. My dad won one this year. It's one of those things, is that you plow into the club the money that you want to. There's probably people that have probably put in, 50-50 is $2,000. How much do you think you probably put in 50-50 in the last 2-3 seasons? Probably $3,000. But money comes through. The atmosphere is, if you wanted these hardcore, die-hard, week in, week out people in the building that would just literally that shout, bring the atmosphere, bring the funk, bring the fun, you're probably looking at half full arenas. But these people that you have to caveat to bring the best players in, the best facilities, everything that they need both of them, and it's being together in unison. Yes, it might frustrate people that people are getting up mid-game or ask what the rules are or boo at the wrong moment when it's a clear cross check, or think it's football, where's the offside? But it's great fun. It's great when the Barmy Army's rocking. It's great when the drums in Sheffield are going. It's great when the boomerang corner's going, block 13. I haven't heard the megaphone this year, so obviously I'm not going to critique or judge. As I would love a megaphone. I don't think it would go down very well because obviously I'm not as witty. I'm very long-winded and not as structured. So be on the megaphone would just be a collection of soliloquies. That would be good. That's a big word. But yeah, atmospheres are good. You don't want them to be libraries. You want people to sing both sides of there. You want the away fans, the home fans. The great games that I always love is obviously when you're at Sheffield versus Belfast and you hear the Belfast ones in the corner just shouting, clanking their cups and being very dismissive of everything that's happening. And they get a respite from the Steelers fans that do exactly the same, backwards and forwards. Same with Belfast and Panthers. That close capacity that they do, absolutely perfect. And I've been at football games. I've heard so long that you take away. I've been to Derby Forest games. I can't repeat some of the things that I've heard chanting backwards and forwards in those games, but got to say it is a family sport. It's a mixture, but I love a bit of atmosphere. You can't go wrong. So the other thing was officials. So I know we've covered this before with, and obviously probably one of the biggest culprits is ourselves, is that, in light of not having the DOPS videos, unless it's 3 games, there is this kind of gap. And, one of the most instantaneous things that we can post is a decision. If something's, if it's been a goal review, if it's been disallowed, if it's been a check or a call that's been missed. And it's the court of public opinion more than anything. If you think about it, I would say that, we probably posted things that, the biggest thing we say thoughts on this, and, people come back and quite literally say, how many times it's caused an argument. I mean, one of the big things really over the weekend that we posted was player falls into the goal. People bring in what happened at Cardiff with Tetlow and Davis as well, and Richie doing that. And, people bringing that, it's deliberate. Why didn't the refs call it? That should be 2 minutes. That should be 4 minutes. That should be ejection. They should be banned for 10 games and stuff like that. It opens up that world. But the more and more I do it, we did the interview about the refs review and the refs can work with eyes and social. If you haven't listened to the podcast, it's alive and available. It's really, really interesting one if you get a chance to listen. It's talking about what people see and what people's perception is. And, the more that I do it is that one thing that I've done the last couple of games is I've tried to actually see it from a perspective of referee. I'm not on the ice, there's not anything like that. It's from an upward trajectory angle, absolutely fine. But there's just so many things that, that can be missed, action in the play and stuff like that. But in the other ways, some players are pretty sneaky when they know what they're doing when they're getting a little bit of a shove, a little bit of a spear, and a little bit of to-in and throw-in. But are they unfairly criticised online? I've seen it quite a few times. We've been through this, that they are doing it. They're doing a 9-to-5 job. I mean, everyone's doing their jobs that they do in the week, and then they're going to sit in hockey for 3 hours. These guys are doing their job, putting food on the table, enjoying what they can do and doing something of vocation. No one's there to make a mistake. No one's actively pushing it through. And I know obviously the rigmarole that people discuss the referees in down here and then in Scotland is a very different kettle of fish. I've been in Scotland for the Dundee game, the Fife game, and the Clan game. I've seen all 3 games in Scotland now. And then the thing is, before we went, it kind of felt like it was Jack the Ripper that was officiating games in Scotland or something like that. Because the way that obviously the hate and the vitriol that happened with the refs in Scotland was just a little bit like, names that you're not fully aware of, that are doing a job. And for me, I've not seen the major issues. I know there's a big conversation about Clan and Stars with how many players were in the box and, the missed call as well. Something else that we posted, it's us, literally. If you're an official listening to this now, I think we're just the cause of everyone making complaints about decisions. But fully, I could not do what they do. From the rulings, I've always said I'd love to speak to a ref, not talk about individual decisions, but just ins and outs of what actually happens, before the season, during the season, what kind of, you know, game decisions that they have to make, how they, deal with players, officials, other officials, and fans, and just keep doing it on a consistent basis. I don't fully understand. I wouldn't be in a situational where I could do it. I mean, obviously, I can't skate, so that's out of the equation anyway. But I don't envy the work that they do and the criticism that they get, which for me is unjustified for the most part. I'm saying for the most part because there is sometimes, I have shouted before and muttered under my breath when I've been watching a game about a decision that's the wrong call. So I'm only human, but obviously I'm not one of those people that's going to critique and get a lynch mob and do whatnot, thinking that you're Frankenstein and everything. So yes, I think they're unfairly criticised. Refs are an important part of the game, as I said about volunteers and everyone that kind of does their part and plays their part, even the fans, everyone, we're all in it together. We're a hockey family, we're a hockey community. I know people don't like me saying hockey family, but, this is the thing. If you don't like a particular team, Belfast and Guildford fans, you're like cousins that don't see anyone anymore. So obviously that you're there, you got to kind of embrace your family ties and regardless, because we're all in it together. We're all here making hockey the best we possibly can. And obviously, if this is the big thing that people take away, that obviously people are going to start complaining on social media that I said that Steelers and Giants fans are like cousins and they should all get along. That would be the funniest thing that everyone takes away from it, if I'm honest. So one thing they want to do, obviously, before we close, I know it's a little bit later than we usually do these shows, is too good and too bad of the weekend. So this is something new that we wanted to bring in that obviously we're going to look at and see is who was too good this weekend. So obviously I get to pick two. So first one, you've really got to say the Nottingham Panthers, really good weekend for them. Really, really good performance. On the Wednesday, on the Friday, and on the Sunday. These are games that they would be a bridge too far, would put themselves in a position that they would struggle. But, really, really good week for them. Got to be in a really great position for them. So they're one of my two goods. Second one is Guildford. Guildford, I would have to say, because they were short benched on Friday. But, they didn't look like they were a team that short benched. Most of the second period, the performance they had being so short benched was great. Third period, it looked like a team that hadn't been rollicked, that obviously won that third period with what they scored and the way they performed. Of course, it was a situation where Panthers had scored enough in those 4 goals. But the question is, if they didn't score those 4 goals, would it have been a different position for Guildford? I think obviously that is something that we won't fully know, but yeah, I mean, you kind of look at it that way. So too bad. So looking at that for too bad, I've got to, really say, Glasgow is probably one of them. Wasn't really a question about them this weekend, because obviously one game being out and then, the performances covered it with the officials and whatnot. But it's one of those things. They looked like they were, on a massive upturn direction. Home games, cancellation that they had due to the ice situation, talking about pegs and everything like that. That's kind of just been at the forefront, But, it was a really big fan base meltdown. It was almost to the degree that it was almost a clan base meltdown, which we haven't had to use that for a while on the bingo card. But, you've got to look at it this way and just say that, team-wise, the players that they've lost, that they've brought in, the injuries that they've had, and the Wednesday performance, everyone, Corey was that kind of one person that could kind of had that knack of being the Challenge Cup deciding factor in the performance that they had, and then bring it on to Saturday where, pretty much, in the ascendancy. Really good performance, and then just poor discipline and poor performances and bodies and having people ejected. And the worst thing is that the most things that I saw out of that game against Dundee was obviously Dundee Stars TV talking about takeaways and everything again and beans and everything, but it was the players being ejected. So many players in the penalty box and ill discipline, and that's obviously that's too bad for me. It's not going to be a catchphrase, but I might try it. But yeah, I mean that obviously really a disappointment one there, and obviously the second one for me, has to be the Manchester Storm. It was going to be, there was going to be a question that it was going to be Steelers, but they had a really great performance on Saturday. Really bad performance in the second and third period, but they have been saved from too bad this week. But yeah, I mean Manchester Storm really is just, as I said, this week is if Fife weren't as bad as they were, obviously that would probably be the much bigger talking point. But Fife, people just want them to survive. People want them to win. The thing is that if Storm won a game, there wouldn't be a sigh of relief from the other 9 teams that were there. Fife win, there was relief that they've finally done it. But for Storm, there is that kind of thing now where it's going to be a very tough week for them. It'd be interesting to see if obviously they're any closer of getting someone through the door from a coaching position. But they need to start picking up points. They need to get a win on the board. And once they're able to do that, it's going to be a step in the right direction for them. But it's a really tough time for their fans. And I do feel for their fans at this moment in time. So hopefully, next week, if we do too good, too bad again, they are in the too good pile. But that is another episode, slightly longer one for a Monday. So I do appreciate everyone sticking around and everything as well. As always, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. If you're listening to the podcast, please follow and subscribe. Same with YouTube. We hit 400 on here over the weekend. Really massive achievement, really. The aim end of the season is to get to 1,000. If we can do it, it'd be amazing. But if you're not already and you're listening to us now, it'd be greatly appreciated if you click like and subscribe. I think that's all of the social media channels. But as always, thank you very much for it. I've been Stephen Turton. You've been listening to Chasing the Puck Live. Thank you very much for your time and have a good rest of the evening.